patients walk into these establishments and the dentist can be amazing and gentle and kind and have the latest technology, but that sensory environment is really going to like put off the bells and whistles in the patient's minds. That's sort of where the philosophy of what we do came from. And then it was determining what could we do to alter the sensory experience? How could we give people less sensory where they need it and more sensory where they need it? And for every person, that's a little bit different.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Coachful Coaching Leadership Podcast. Today, I am here with Jessica Martin. Jessica, good morning. How you doing?
Hi, David.
So I did some research on you, and it says you're a licensed psychologist turned entrepreneur. You co-own Martin Dental, a dental spa. But more importantly, you founded the consulting firm Martin Management, LLC. And after 20 years as a school psychologist, which I want to dive more into, your experiences there, you applied your expertise in human behavior to transform this dental office into a spa-like practice and hopefully to reduce patient anxiety and boost patient satisfaction. So you went from education to entrepreneurship, and now you're doing a lot of this public speaking, consulting with a lot of firms and practices. So yeah, let's talk more about what you do, Jessica, and what are you trying to bring into the world. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great, David. Thank you.
If I can ask you the first question that made me very curious. You started off as a school psychologist. Tell me more about that, how that experience was, and what made you transition from that to what you're doing now.
So I initially in college was interested in the law, ironically. And I started out a pre-law program, chose my college for that in mind of law school. And I got into those pre-law classes and realized I didn't love it. And so psychology was my minor, and I always found human behavior and understanding people very interesting. So I said, well, I'll do the psych route. And so went on to become a school psychologist, which I didn't even know what that was in undergrad. But once I got through undergrad and started looking at research or looking at master's programs, it found me. And essentially it's the combination of the law and psychology kind of combined. So I worked in the school setting and helped students get accommodations and supports that they needed. And I helped families understand what supports students needed and help teachers kind of, align that support. And as I look now, none of this was linear. So I look back now and I'm like, okay, all of that training, the experience in the school setting, which I loved, by the way, really is what clicked in my mind that we could make the healthcare experience much different. We could accommodate people for how their bodies feel and how they're thinking about healthcare and the experiences they've had before, help cater the experience so that's much better for them. And my husband's a dentist. And so that's the connection of why I helped create a dental spa. And he needed my support in 2014 at the practice. And so that's how I got involved in modifying our practice.
I see. Okay. Something caught my ear when you said your journey was not linear. And, on this podcast, we talk a lot about people's journeys. And I think and here's my perspective, and I love your perspective too. I'm at A and I want B. I want to just go from A to B in the shortest path possible, not realizing that C, D, E, F along the way is actually helping me get to point B. And, just like my journey, like I started off studying science and chemistry and all that stuff. And somehow I ended up in technology, and somehow I'm doing this now. Right. And it's been a great journey because of that. I guess when you think about it for yourself, your journey from, it sounds like you understood human psychology. A lot of dental offices you walk to are like, hasn't changed in 50 years. So like, talk about like how that nonlinear journey has helped you shape what you do now and who you are now.
Yeah, it's really interesting because in my 20s and early 20s, my type A my type A personality really led me to have a plan. I got my master's by 24. I got my administrative license shortly after. I had it all planned out. I was going to do that and get all these certifications and degrees and then have a family. And I thought that was my course. And my husband's very similar too. He knew he wanted to be a dentist. He got into dental school. He did the work. He, worked at a practice. He now owned a practice, like all the things step by step. But somewhere along the way, motherhood is probably kind of where I got spinned around, if you will, right? I think it's one of the
Hmm.
most humbling things where you lose all
Parenting.
control, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep.
Um, you're just like, well, now I'm not reactive necessarily. I still like to be proactive, but you're also needing to kind of ride the wave a little bit. I think that's where the intuitive side of my personality kicked in and started to really feel more of like where the passion was and where I felt like I could make a bigger impact. And so I've been able to let go little by little. It's still a work in progress, but more over the years in terms of I like to have a plan still, but I also feel that there's a lot of room for deviating if as needed with that using that intuitive compass to guide me in what's next.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like this almost like this sort of flexibility, this deviation also made you rethink what a dental practice could be, right? Talk more about that. So I've been on your website, but I haven't been to your practice. Obviously, I'm here in Toronto. You're in Wisconsin, but it sounds like you've done something very different with a traditional, like what could have been a traditional dental practice.
Yeah, so my husband's philosophy has always been focused on quality care and really taking exceptional care of people doing things right. And so that's kind of the principles that we've always hung our hat on. But as I started promoting the practice in our community, I kept hearing people talk about how they dislike the dentist and how they have all these traumatic experiences or how they
Hmm.
dread going. And I didn't realize how significant this problem was. I personally didn't have a problem having dental care done as a child. And then I, married a dentist. So I didn't realize. But after hearing that, I thought, well, gosh, this is a problem. I started researching it and was like, I'm a psychologist. I could help with this, right? Like, this
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense that I've been tasked with this problem, this dental anxiety that's so prevalent. And I started doing some research on it. Like, what could we do to make it better? Could we offer, therapy sessions before people's visits? Like, would that make an impact? And really thinking broadly about what could be different. And I don't remember the moment, I wish I did, but at some moment it clicked that it was sensory. And I think for me, it was easily put together because I worked in the special education world as a school psychologist. And
Mm.
in schools, there are sensory rooms where kids can go and either get less sensory input, meaning like it's a quiet room, there's not a lot of colors, it's very just low sensory, or they can get extra sensory input. There's things on the wall, there's things to touch and to play with, there's things to jump on, there's swings. And I realized that it's the sensory system that was really causing so many people to be so anxious and to have such negative experiences with dentistry because dentistry assaults our senses from every angle. And I'm watching your reaction as you even talk about
You know all
dental.
I'm thinking
I can
about?
see you.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. You know what I think about? This is the sound I hear,
yeah,
and that's not associated with anything good, right? Like
right.
that's all I hear as you're talking about an office and the sensory input and that smell, whatever
Yep.
that. Um, I don't know what
The
that smell is.
anesthetic,
I
the
guess it's anesthetic or what? What is
burning
it?
teeth. I mean, it's like hospitals have that same, it's a different smell, but it's not
Yeah,
still an off-putting smell, right? And so
yeah.
that's the thing is like patients walk into these establishments and the dentist can be amazing and gentle and kind and have the latest technology, but that sensory environment is really going to like put off the bells and whistles in the
Hmm.
patient's mind. So that's sort of where the philosophy of what we do came from. And then it was determining what could we do to alter the sensory experience? How could we give people less sensory where they need it and more sensory where they need it. And for every person, that's a little bit different. I mean, there are those common triggers like the sound of the drill, the smell of the practice. Those are somewhat universal, but for each person, they might enjoy heat, they might enjoy cold, they might enjoy weight. The weight might make them feel claustrophobic. So it's setting up a system for the practice to help the team cater the visit for the patient so that their body can relax and go, okay, this isn't so bad.
Okay, so I guess very quickly then, like, what are some of the things you're doing in this practice that are accommodating to the senses of the individual?
Yes. So we have a checklist that every patient gets to choose from when they check in. All of it's complimentary. but it's either adding sensory, it's adding positive sensory, or it's removing negative sensory. So we have noise reducing headphones to take that pitch of the drill down. We have eye masks that are cooled to just, let the patient go inward and not watch people looming over them, coming at
Mhm.
them. We have heated neck wraps that provide a little weight on the shoulders, a little bit of the heat sensation. We also have cooled ones. We have regular blankets and weighted blankets to, again, allow people to feel more covered, less vulnerable. Different types of pillows to help them get comfortable in the chair. We do a mini massage of like the head and neck area.
That sounds
We
good.
The whole atmosphere is
Yeah.
different. So like there's spa music playing, the colors that we've chosen for, our decor, everything has a different vibe so that mentally you're like, this feels different, this looks different. This is my comfort is going to be focused on. And then another
I
key
see.
part of it is that our team has been trained on dental anxiety, and we do an extensive intake on how the patient feels about receiving care before they come in so that we know, have they had bad experiences? What are the triggers that get them? Is it sensitivity? Is it seeing the needles? Is it the sound of the drill, right? So that we can help them accommodate.
Okay. So it sounds like you found this formula and all the data points on what triggers an individual when they walk into a dental setting or a healthcare setting. And it sounds like you've packaged this up in a way so that you can teach other practitioners out there how to create a great patient and customer experience. Talk more about that. I'm very interested in this because one of the guys I just talked to on this podcast was all about customer experience and employee experience. And we talked a lot about whether you're in a hotel industry, hospitality, in your case, healthcare. Like, how can you create a great experience for someone?
Yeah. So it's interesting because when I launched Martin Management in 2018, I thought everyone's going to want to do this. Like this is incredible. We've had so much great patient growth. We've got waiting lists. We are completely out of network with insurance. We've raised fees. We've created this, I think, and most people probably would agree, like an ideal practice model that we now are helping people and the business is thriving. So I thought, well, people are going to eat this up. And so I wrote like a whole workbook for how people could do it on their own. I offered training for how people could replicate what we were doing. And to be totally frank, a lot of people don't want to be a dental spa.
Hmm.
Like, there are some. I do have some clients that are like, "I love the concept. Teach us exactly how to do it." And I do that. And I've got it all systematized and ready to go, plug and play. A lot of my clients are like, "I don't really love the word spa, or I'm not a dental practice, So how do I make my client or patient experience different and create that wow factor?" And so that's been interesting because I thought, here's this ticket and everyone's going to want to do this, I do get that, but a lot of my consulting allows me to actually be creative and help each practice customize what's going to work for them, and really draw on their strengths of their team to say, okay, what do you guys do really well? Like, what do you want to be known for? Because now let's lean into that and now find little details that we can put into place to really amplify that and help them to create that unique journey for their patients.
Yeah. This reminds me of I was listening to another podcast recently where this gentleman, I forgot his name, but it's New York City. It's a place where young people want to hang out, but it's not a bar. It's not a club. It's a place where you can get vitamin C and E IV drips. But he made it this place. It's a cool and hip place for young people to party. And you party by having water, have these IV drips, get a massage. It's very interesting what this gentleman has done. And he made it this thing where it's not about meeting up at 11 p.m. at night. Parties are at 8 a.m. in the morning, right?
That was great.
So yeah, and it's somehow it has caught on. And it's what you're talking about. It sounds like it's something that could catch on here where like it makes me excited because healthcare in general is it's here's the irony. On one hand, it's so advanced in the technologies, the practices, the procedures, and the innovations there. On the other hand, how they treat patients, I swear, you can probably go back to the 1920s. It's probably hasn't changed that much,
Right.
right? There's probably no innovation there. There's irony there. So you're offering a ability, like an opportunity to innovate from that experience perspective. So I guess like when you think about it, then how is like like you know your leadership, the psychology, your work with your husband. What do you want to bring into this world? It's
Yeah.
a bigger mission I'm asking about here.
Yes. I mean, I really think that my purpose is to create a positive impact on healthcare and helping to humanize healthcare, helping providers that really, want to be that change maker that not just cures the disease or gets the patient out of pain, but that truly like helps the patient feel better and create an environment that a patient doesn't have to dread. Like that's I think what where my mark will be left. And I've worked mostly in the private practice realm at this point because I think change is a little easier to implement and there's a lot of more autonomy, but I don't know, I think a lot of things need to change in healthcare to make it more patient centric, to make it more human for lack of a better way to put it. And I think
Mhm.
that's my mission.
Yeah. I want to go deeper on that if that's okay. Every driven entrepreneur I've talked to on this podcast usually has a deeper why behind it. And it sounds like you're very connected to this human experience when it comes to healthcare. What's driving you to make this experience?
I don't know that healthcare would have necessarily been on my radar without having, married into it. Psychology really was always my focus in helping people with, how they feel and their confidence and if, anxiety or whatever they were struggling with. But I don't know, healthcare myself, I've not experienced a ton of negative healthcare, luckily. So I don't have that, but I've just heard so many stories. And because we own a business that is healthcare related, I've I've lived through the anxiety of being a business owner, wondering, are we going to have enough patients? Is this the right thing to do for marketing? How do we grow? How do we afford this piece of equipment that we really need to be successful? And so I think it kind of just blends both worlds for me. It's that psychology of the entrepreneur of I really want to have a successful business, but I don't know for sure how to make that happen, but I care about people and then there's that patient side that I want to help patients to have a better experience. So I think what I'm able to do is a win-win for everyone and I love that about it. I also have experienced personally infertility and so I did go through that and most of my experience was good and luckily I was able to, have my two beautiful children through that process and that journey, but I was definitely one of those people that hated needles before all of that. I don't love needles now, but like I had
I
to
was
kind
going
of
to
get
ask you, do
used
you love
to
it,
it.
Neelan?
I had to get more comfortable with it to get through that, and I think everyone does. You push through things that you can't imagine you would when your health is at stake, right? And so I just want to make that better for people. And make it better for providers too, because at the end of the day, they're moving the needle, if, especially if they're owning the business at the same time. So we need to do things that are efficient, that allow them to be successful in what they're doing, so they can continue all the care that they want to provide.
When you think about like running a business, and it sounds like there's a lot of things that could go right and a lot of things that can go wrong. Like you just mentioned it, like mm, buying that piece of equipment, getting enough patients. What's a recent challenge that stands out right now that you're still going through?
So I would say in our dental practice, one of the challenges has been the amount of patients that have wanted to come to our practice. We've been, I don't want to say too busy because that's not the right way to say it, but like very abundant, right? And for my husband's time. And so he's worked a lot of hours to help all of these patients. And so we've been looking for an associate to join our practice for the last few years. And we just had somebody join our team as
Hmm.
another doctor to help balance some of that load and he's actually from Canada as well. So
Oh yeah,
good vibes there. Yeah. But
I told you, practically Canada.
right. Yeah, and it's funny because whenever anybody moves to Wisconsin from somewhere else, we're like, what it's like here in the winter, right? Like, because we don't want to, we don't want to get them here and then have them be like, it's February. What have I gotten myself into? But he's like, oh no, I'm from Canada. I totally get the seasons. We're like, great, but working through those growing pains, essentially, right, of being very busy and then creating a practice where we do attract people that are highly anxious. We do attract people that have put off care for 10, 20 years. And so they have a lot going on. And so the complexity of what their needs are is a challenge at times too for my husband to really think through their whole case, as how like we need to phase this because every tooth needs to be touched on some level because we've neglected things for so long because of anxiety. So, you know, it's great, good problems, right? I don't want to go back to the days of how do we fill our schedule? We don't have enough
Yeah.
people. How do we get the word out? I mean,
Yeah.
we're in a good position, but in every phase of business, there are those challenges. And that's currently what we're dealing with.
Yeah. How do you manage all that stress?
I like to exercise and do yoga. And I like, as I mentioned to you off recording, I live on a lake and being near water, even just looking at it, but being near it is very calming and therapeutic. So we try to just compartmentalize, work time, family time, lake time. And that's how we manage it.
Very well. So, for anyone listening, like I have a lot of aspiring leaders, emerging leaders, and current leaders who listen to this podcast. What advice would you give to them? Like, if they are starting to look at building their own business and dipping their toe into that, or they're in the middle of something that just really sucks right now, what advice can you give?
Yeah, I guess I would say don't hesitate to look for support, to look for ways of improving. Sometimes people are born with leadership qualities, and sometimes people aren't. And, in our journey, we've worked with a gentleman named Dr. Matthew Norton, and we actually initially had talked with you about coming on the podcast together because we share a lot of clients. And what he does is he really helps people understand what their strengths are and the people around them too, what are their strengths, and then really helps people get in alignment with what here are this group of people. If you have a team and you're leading, here are their strengths and here's where they see purpose and where they see fulfillment. Now how can we come together to create a cohesive team that can do really incredible things for people? And as a leader, I think sometimes you can, run into the trap of thinking you need to know everything or you need to fake it till you make it. And I just would say get that support that you feel like you need. If you're not strong in a certain area, really figuring out you and then getting people around you that can kind of be that
Hmm.
buffer for the things that you're not as good at. That's leadership. It's not just doing everything yourself or forcing people into things. It's inspiring. I think ideally it's inspiring, it's motivating, and it's really being able to see how to help others be their best, which then helps you shine too.
Okay. So, Jessica, I always ask this question as the last question to every single guest. And every single guest always says, crap. But I'm going to ask you. My question is, what's one question I should have asked you, but I have not?
I like to talk about like the impact, I guess, that we can have on healthcare, on leadership, on teams when working, like when I'm able to work with people. I think what I see is a lot of times business owners or leaders start out feeling very deflated, defeated, confused, discouraged, and working on a lot of what I do is system optimization, helping them hold the team accountable, helping things just run more effectively, but also always keeping like their client or their patient journey in mind. When we can get all of those pieces moving together, like the outcome of that is an owner or a leader that's like, okay, we've got a plan. I feel in alignment with where we're going. The business, I feel good about it again. I feel inspired to want to try new things. And I just think that's something that is wonderful to see that outcome of going from like kind of chaos to clarity.
Chaos to clarity. Well, on that note, Jessica, how can people find you, what you're up to, and what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so I do have a website and it's martinmanagementllc.com. And if you go to that site and you go, what is it, backslash? Is that the right word? And backslash
Back, forward.
resources.
Yep.
If you go to that particular site, that URL, I do have a few different resources on there that leaders out there might find helpful. I have a mini audit where they can look through like what are their systems and kind of rank where they're at, where they might need to look at and put some some time into ramping those up. And then I also have some information about like the 10 mistakes that most healthcare practices make. If those are of interest of anybody, those resources are free and available to download.
All right. We'll link that in the show notes later.
Thank you.
All right, Jessica. Well, thank you very much for taking the time today.
Thank you, David.
All right. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a good day. That's a wrap on this episode of the Coachful Coaching Leadership Podcast. I'm David Fung, and my mission is to help leaders grow, lead with impact, and build thriving teams. If you found this valuable, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow leader. Until next time, keep leading with purpose.